Welcome everyone to the ultimate guide to Blender, 3D rigging and animation. So why do we call it the ultimate guide? Well, that's because we'll be going through everything in this course from basic movement animation, tank tracks, morphs, animals, and even a character rig. Finally, I've created an actual large scene where you'll be able to test a majority of the skills that you're going to learn throughout the course. Now, there'll be no modeling in this course. It's purely about rigging and animation, so I'm going to presume that you're going to know a bit about the basics of the Blender UI, the movement tools, the camera movement, things like that. They're not really going to be covered in this course. And what better place to start than our actual training scene, which I actually set up. So let's quickly go through our training scene. So you will see at the moment I've got one that says basic animation. Over the right hand side in our scene collection, you can see that we have all of these going from 1 to 14 and then a special one called camera turntable. So the first one is the lighting. All we have in this scene is just a basic direct light, sunlight setup, and that is all. That's just so if you want to actually put your render on to actually see what we're actually doing in the scene, you can actually do that. Of course, it's on Eevee. And the other thing is, if you just want to turn up your lighting, just click on your sun, come over to the right hand side, click on this little lamp. I'm just going to pull this up so you can see what I'm doing. Click on the little lamp and then just put this on 2 or something like that. And all that's going to do is turn up the light within our scene like so. So now you can see it looks a bit better and you can see these things moving in real time in Eevee. So let's actually close that up. Let's look at the first one then. So the first one is called basic animation. This is the one that we're going to start with, and we're basically starting with something that's very, very easy. And as we work our way down here, they're going to get more complex and you're going to learn more and more things. So the first one here, you can also see that we have a man in here, and he's actually really important. We've got a actual reference of a standard human who's 1.8 meters tall, I think, something around there. And basically he's there so that you can actually understand that when you're actually going to animate and rig things, you actually need to make sure that you are to scale. It's very important. Anything you create is to scale. So you can see here this beach ball, it's a pretty big beach ball, and you will see when we come to animate this, it will bounce in such a way that seems to be the size that it is. In other words, if we had a little tiny ball in there, it would bounce and move very differently to if we have a big ball in there. So in other words, things like gravity, things like collisions really do have an impact on how big something is. But more than that, if you set up a rig on, let's say, this barrel or something, and then you send it through to something like Unity or Unreal Engine 5 or even Sketchfab, the animations aren't probably not going to work the way you intended, because first of all, it's going to come in to the scene absolutely huge. Someone then is going to have to scale it back down, and then what it could do is could destroy all of your animations so they don't actually work correctly. So that's why you want to do things where basically you get something, you scale it, and then the most important thing is if I click on here and I press Ctrl A, we reset our transformations before adding any bones or any sort of animation. Really important we do that. The reason is that Blender needs to understand the shape and size of the things that we're working with. In other words, if I got this crate and I made it this big, if I didn't reset my transformations, Blender would still believe that this crate was this size that we had it before. So whenever we change anything or scale anything or anything like that, we reset our transformations and then we can start adding animations, rigs, things like that. So now let's come to something like our second one. So you will see now we've got something like a swing animation. So we're actually going to come in and put in a rig on here to make this swing move in a realistic way. So you can see that as we go down here, we've got things like shape keys. How do you make a pumpkin, for instance, go from a tiny seed all the way up to a big pumpkin that looks realistic? You can see at the moment this pumpkin doesn't look very realistic, but I'm going to show you how you can actually change that and make it actually grow into a proper pumpkin. We've also got things where you're going to need multiple bones, like on this. You can see that we need to put multiple bones in here to actually make this spin in a realistic way. We've also got things on here like fish. So we've got fish in here, animals moving in a realistic way, like a fish swimming through the ocean and things. We need to actually make sure we know how to do that, and we're going to actually go through that. We've also got things like tank tracks, we've got morphing on here, and we've got things like complex chains. So with the complex chains, you can see that we want this stone to go up in a certain way, and we want these chains to actually follow it along so that it's moving in a realistic way. This is great in case you've got characters with, chains on them, or if it's a horse pulling a carriage with either rope or chains or something like that. You need to know how to actually rig that up correctly. Finally then, we've got our human OBJ, our human actual model, and you can see that we're going to actually rig this properly and have an actual walk cycle. You can also say that at the moment she's absolutely huge, so we're going to scale her down, get her to the right size, reset the transformations, and then we're going to put a rig on her. And also in the download pack, you will find in there an actual walk cycle reference guide, so you'll be able to animate this one very easily, and you'll be able to take that away for future use when you actually want to, animate your own characters and things like that. Finally then, we've got something which is the camera turntable, and we've included this in because you can't really have a complete animation guide without showing you how to actually work with the Blender camera, have it, going around a 360-degree turn and actually take a nice render of your actual model or your castle or whatever it might be. So I think it's important that we put this in there. All right, finally then, let's move on to the actual scene before we get started. So where is our main scene that we're actually going to animate once we've actually gone through all those processes? And what this will do is it will give you a real actual test of all the skills that you've learned to animate things like these falling rocks. We'll make this ceiling jutter slightly. We'll have this monkey and the sandbag coming in and out. Of course, we're going to have the rock rolling down here like from Indiana Jones. We've got the spikes that are going to be coming in and out. We've got the arrows that are going to be firing. And of course, we've got the floor that will be falling away and things like that. So you can see it's really good because we're going to take all those skills and put them into a real world practice. So you might have a scene that you want to put animation in, or you might be going to the industry and you've got things you need to animate, and it's a kind of bigger scene. There's lots of complexity there. You need to kind of bring them all together. I'm going to show you how to do that once we've gone through all of these other lessons that we're going to go through. The main thing about this is it's set up so it's really, really easy for you to actually work with. You're going to know exactly where you are with all of these lessons going down. We're going to go through each one by one and just getting you really used to working with Blender. All right, everyone. So on the next lesson, the first one we're actually going to work on is going to be basic animations, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.